Hey everyone, Tactics here with my 8th and final Advanced Mythic Plus guide and walkthrough for Dragonflight's Season 1, where in this video I'll be taking a look at a timed plus 21 Tyrannical Ruby life pools, and honestly it's a very sloppy run, but I think that's very good to highlight as well in this video series. Sometimes you make mistakes, where will those mistakes likely come, and how do you recover from them? So I'll be going over all that stuff and more in this video. Just because you wipe, remember, doesn't mean a key can't be timed, so I'll look at the root. I'll look at the different pulls for trash mobs as well as the bosses themselves and how we handled them. And hopefully all of that will help you and your group get one timed as well. If you want to see any of my other advanced dungeon guides, they're over on my channel and I'll link them as well in the description below for you to check out. Otherwise, let's get into the run here. And right off the top, note we are in 1.25 times speed just for brevity. We're going to shroud and skip this Juggernaut. It's not that these guys are difficult, it's just they have a lot of health, as you can see, compared to all the other mobs. And they're just a little bit annoying. And as you're going to see, because of the required trash in the second boss and the last boss area, you kind of want to skip a bunch of trash in this area if you can. So we're going to make use of that. Do note, I do think we actually scuff it a little bit here, which you're going to see. But basically in this trash pull, the main thing you want to focus on are these Chill Weaver's ice shields. You want to interrupt or stop those. And then the Earth Shaper's Tectonic Slam, you want to make sure you stop those. So there's a couple of those in this pull here. As you can see, we have AoE stops going out. Spare kicks can go into those bolts to help your tank a little bit. But other than that, stops are all going into the Earth Shapers, and we have a kick assigned to get those ice shields as well. As you can see, they're interrupting ASAP, because any mob that has an ice shield, as you can see, it's the Terra Sentry in this case, will not be able to be CC'd while that's available. This is Sanguine, so we do move into this pool here and start running over all of these eggs to unlock, or not unlock, rather, to spawn some whelplings. These infused whelplings, they will start cold clawing, so watch threat here when you're spawning them. We're going to stagger misdirects in a second here on it. But basically, we spawn all of these whelps, and these whelps do actually give count, which is quite useful, and they won't do on-death affixes like Sanguine and stuff like that. But of course, the Sanguine was much harder for us to see than we anticipated in this area, which is a problem. So we end up leaving this puddle a little bit earlier than we wanted to. And it gets a little bit chaotic here because of that. So specifically watch out for Sanguine in this kind, because obviously like there was a lot of healing as well, as you can see from the Sanguine, just because you're not really able to see it here in this pool. So we probably should have just had someone else who's not the tank run out and get those to kind of trigger them. But we walk out here, and I believe we missed the Dispel here. Yeah, so I get stunned here. Just be careful, because these whelps are still using that cast. It's still relatively slow. It can be interrupted and stopped, that kind of thing. But your healer will also just want to make sure that they are still dispelling your tank, because I believe I get frozen and die here. But luckily, the trash is done. Yeah, I was in that swirly when I was frozen. The trash is done here. I am just going to use a quick invis pod to get past this guy and get back to them. But the problem here is because of all that chaos in this first pull, you see there were still 5 eggs. The key to this route is making sure that you pull every single egg in this pool, specifically this pool right to your left as you come in here. Literally every egg in that pool. We're gonna run into count problems at the end of the dungeon because we forgot to pull these eggs. So note that. Very important to those route, because it's very free count right at the beginning of the dungeon. Compared to some of the count later on. So otherwise, chugging along here, all of these pulls are Earth Shaper, Chill Weaver pulls, and basically anytime you see a Terra Sentry, it's like a free mob. You can ignore them entirely. They're just kind of health sponges. You just avoid the stone missiles on the ground, and we just focus on the Chill Weavers and the Earth Shapers, because those are the two that have important casts, helping out with any explosives as we get like any big spawns. But the healer can handle the vast majority of them. As you see, like I'm going to swap to ones in melee range and auto attack them. As you can see, like I'll just shift to melee range, auto attack them, not necessarily committing any like a shield slam or anything like that, but even just a single auto will kill them, so that's very useful. We're moving up here, and our goal is to again kind of slide by one of the bigger Earth guy here, the same guy that we skipped at the beginning. That's the example there. Actually, I'll rewind that as well. That's an example there of where the shield went out and actually went on the Earth Shaper, and because we didn't like purge it off or anything immediately and get rid of it, that slam did go off, as you can see there. Luckily, it was Tyrannical, sorry, excuse me, but so it wasn't too dangerous, but still just note that can happen, so be really careful of the shield overlapping with the tectonic slams. Otherwise here, we're just going to clean up this pack, and eventually we're going to run through. If we had a better pat here, we probably would have taken a couple of these mobs through with us, hugging the right wall. But instead what we're just going to do is, because we have 2 shrouds, we're just going to use our second shroud here, and instead of wait for this patrol and just hug the right wall, you could just wait for this guy to be at the end of his pat, like over here, and you don't need to shroud this. You can just walk, and then you just pull this guy, and usually you'd be pulling one of the other casters as well around this corner here, and you can just kill them in this room. Gives you a bunch of space. You don't pull a bunch of the trash. You don't risk pulling any of the trash in that other room, so just pull this guy through. This guy also does have true sight, so keep that in mind, of course. You can't just walk by him, which is why we pull him. But, I mean, potentially could be doable with, like, a Priest Mind Soothe. The only problem we found is that if you engage the boss, this guy will run in as well. Kind of similar to the last boss in Nokud. So, potentially, if you have both a Mind Soothe and, like, a Feign Death or a Combat Drop, you could do the same thing you do in Nokud. Untested, but just know that's maybe a potential possibility to kind of pull even more of that easy trash in that first area and maybe drop pulling that guy. But kind of requires a lot from your comp. Then we get to Meladrusa, and this is probably maybe after the nerfs one of the hardest bosses in Dragonflight Season 1, honestly. You're going to see here how we handle this is we try and stay as stacked as a group as possible. All of us are right here in the middle. Note, as a tank, you get big chunked here. All those frost bombs the boss is spamming are frost damage. It's not that fake frost damage. If you remember, like the last boss in Necrotic Wake where it was a frost ability, but it was doing physical damage. That's doing frost damage to you. That's why this is one of the harder tank bosses. You're taking a lot of magic damage, basically the entire fight. As you can see here, I am taking spell block in this dungeon for that reason. A lot of other defensive talents as a prot warrior. For the chill storms here, you're going to see just one person basically just take it a little bit. That was probably like even far. You didn't even need to walk that far. You just need it out of the group. The pull's not super hard, so any direction is good as long as you're not running it in front of the group ideally here, because as you can see here, we're dropping all of our hail bombs in one spot and then we're rotating around the room. Doesn't really matter which direction you rotate. You could go left, you could go right, clockwise, counterclockwise, doesn't matter. We just go right every time a hail bomb spawns just to keep it nice and neat. And we're all together here again, regrouping. This is kind of easier to show because we're a 5 melee group, but ranged, you'd want to be in with the melee here as well. And the big thing here is for these whelps, when they come out twice in the fight, we're not moving to the whelps. We're letting the whelps come to us because, of course, immediately out of this frost overload, there's going to be a hail bomb like very, very shortly after. And we don't want to be caught like in the middle of the room and really mess up where we're positioning our hail bombs. All right, there's like 5 seconds after you break this shield, there's going to be a hail bomb here. So we let the whelps come to us. Just make sure, DPS, be careful. Don't be too close to the whelps. Make sure that you're between, or your tank rather, is between you and the whelps so that they can run through the tank. The tank can get aggro and it's all fine there. Otherwise, as a tank, your scariest overlaps are when those chill storms are up. You're going to be taking a ton of magic damage from the boss and from those chill storms. So you really know that's kind of when you want to rotate in your bigger cooldowns that you have available to you. Particularly when she is actually spam casting during that thing. So just be aware of that very, very high tank damage moment every time that happens. And then as you can see here, right, the whelps are coming out. Everyone else is letting me get to them first. I think actually I use AoE taunt on this set and I use cooldowns on the other one to get aggro. We're just AoEing them down, but we're focusing the damage into Meladrusa Chillwarn here to interrupt that frost overload. I think like Curse of Tongues and stuff like that is also very, very powerful if you have a warlock in your group to help make that make the ticks less frequent. Very, very cool. Do that if you have a warlock for sure. Otherwise, it's just a rinse and repeat of this fight. We're rotating around the room, dropping the storms away from the group, coming back together to help with stacked healing, and then just slowly moving as hail bombs spawn. Then we can get through to the next area here. Once we get this boss down, we're flying up. And this is kind of where you have the decision, right? There's a lot of different decisions that have been made here in high keys. Both, it seems like the difference is between NA and EU, honestly. A lot of North American teams are going left here and killing Thunderhead. And then a lot of EU teams I've seen are going right here and they're actually killing the Fire Dragon. Now, why do you kill a dragon at all? Because in theory, both of them are skippable. The reasoning is, especially in a higher Tyrannical key, you actually just need so much space to do this second boss that you kite through, usually end up kiting through one of the dragon's patrols. And so you have to kill one of them. The choice is which one are you killing? I prefer to kill the fire dragon. In my opinion, I think it's easier to handle. I think you could argue for the lightning dragon as well. I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. As long as you're able to kill that dragon, fine. If you kill Thunderhead, you would want to rotate around the second boss room counterclockwise, so to the left, because that's where the dragon is dead. If you kill the fire dragon, you rotate clockwise, so to the right, around this area, because again, that's the dragon you've killed, so that's the area you have free of space. Moving on to the trash here before we actually get into the boss fight. Flame Dancers, Cinder Weavers, just make sure you're kicking those Cinder Weavers. We have 2 kicks assigned to each marker, and we have stops for the Flame Dance here. It'll get interesting if you ever have more than 2 Cinder Weavers in a pull, especially, so that's why we're killing these Cinder Weavers before we end up moving. A nice little tip for these Flame Dancers is you can actually purge them here. If you can purge that off and it instantly kills them, and you don't need to worry about dodging them, so they're on death thing when they just start spinning and are immune to stuff. Purge that off if you have one. It's really nice. Meanwhile, we actually don't purge the Cinder Weavers when they get their buff because it causes them to take damage and stuff. So while it is a haste buff, it's still fairly easy to get the kicks on them with that Burning Ambition rather. So we leave that on them to allow us to kill them a little bit faster. Otherwise here, of course, you do have to kill all of the Blaze-bound destroyers in this area. That Inferno cast does kind of hurt. See the Blaze of Glory there is going off. Purged instantly dies. And we're just pulling this guy back to the stairs here, just so we don't accidentally pull the Fire Dragon who just landed there. Though his patrol is fairly forgiving, so it's quite easy to not accidentally pull him, whereas Thunderhead's pull is much more difficult. So maybe potentially in Pugs you'd prefer to pull Thunderhead just because of that reason alone, right? Much harder to dodge Thunderhead than Flame Gullet. Yeah, Flame Gullet's his name. I remembered his name. There it is. So keep that in mind too. So we're going into Flame Gullet here. The big thing for Flame Gullet, of course, is that sub 50%. You can see that bar on his health, is that he's going to start doing ramping party damage. So that's kind of where you want to make sure you have some sort of damage committed to him there. Luckily, again, Tyrannical week, not super dangerous. Fortified week, he can start getting pretty scary, so you usually want to have some sort of CDs for the 50% to 0 area. And it's not too big a deal, too, like if you invest very big CDs, long CDs in that point, because you can, of course, once he starts getting very close to death, chain into the next pack to still get value from those cooldowns. I don't think, again, we didn't commit a ton there. We didn't really have a ton to commit to this guy. We have a couple very, very consistent damage dealers. Actually, all 3 of them, right? Demon Hunter and 2 Rogues. Very consistent damage, so not a big deal there. But we're just moving on. Next pull here again. This is pretty simple. Again, 1 Cinder Weaver, 1 Flame Dancer, 1 Destroyer. Keep on top of them. And you can see here we're pulling all of the little guys, the Scorchlings, just as we go here, just for extra like funnel damage, cleave damage, whatever. We need to kill all of them for this route for count, so keep that in mind. No reason that you don't need to go in the stairs for this pack, but you will in the next area. And let's talk about skipping Thunderhead, because that's a question I've had come up a lot here, because I do, of course, do a Thunderhead skip in my very own route. So how do we actually manage that? So first thing, you're coming up here, you want to get eyes on Thunderhead. There he is. We just saw him. He just landed. That because he was doing that wing animation, he just landed. So we know we have some time. So we immediately start running here. But if you don't have eyes on Thunderhead, I recommend stopping back a little bit, because he flies through this area right here, and try and find him. Do not move past this area until you found him. Trust me. Then you can run through here. Everyone needs to run through here. You want to get kicks and pull these guys over towards the stairs as we're going right here. Again, stops on the Flame Dancer. Just the 1 Cinder Weaver, but the big thing here is just that scary. You see that explosive in the back did go off, but it's okay. And we just want to pull to the stairs here, because Thunderhead is going to be padding all around us. And so if you play too far back on either side here, you may accidentally pull him during his patrol. So now we're just like, okay, we're getting this pack relatively low. Where is Thunderhead? There he is. So we just see him patrol around us. So we know, okay, he's just near the end of his patrol again. He's going to go back and sit down, so we can go to our next pat now. Watch that explosion. We actually want to avoid this 3-pack for count. We have Shroud, just like we skipped at the beginning. So we're going to Shroud and run past this pack here. And the key is, again, getting your kicks on these Cinder Weavers to get them over to the edge, because Thunderhead is right there. He's going to fly right down this area. We get 2 kicks. We pull them down. And this is actually enough here We have 4 kicks now. We've done 2 sets of 2 kicks on these Cinder Weavers. We've pulled them all the way down, and we're relatively safe away on the stairs here. Now, because we've used our kicks, of course, and because they start casting relatively quickly, because they do have that buff, we are using AoE stuns, because this is a double Cinder Weaver pack. These are the 2 scarier packs in this dungeon for sure, especially on fortified weeks. So that's how we're doing that. And then we get our next set of kicks again after that AoE stun. And again, we're just kind of killing this, waiting for Thunderhead to kind of do his thing and leave, and we'll be safe away from him over on this stairs here. So he'll fly past us at some point, and then we'll be able to just kind of run past him, pick up those Scorchlings that are in his area while he's away on his patrol, and get to the second boss. Let's go there. Oh, too far, too far. Okay, so we're getting these Scorchlings that were Thunderhead was. He's gone, he's flying around, and we're going straight to the second boss. Bloodlust is going to be up in like 5 seconds here. We did on Tyrannical week end up using this on the first boss, and then we're using it here on the second boss, and then we'll use it on the third boss. So that's kind of the less timings on Tyrannical. For Fortified Key, maybe you would use it on like the first pull. You'd use it on one of the big pulls, or not big pulls, but like maybe one of the more dangerous pulls in this trash area, and then you'd use it on the last boss. So that's kind of where you'd use Bloodlust here, between Fort and Tyrannical. But for Blaze Stuff here, the key is baiting your Blaze Binding rituals and then your boulders. I actually think we do a relatively poor job of that in this pull, so I'll talk you through it. For this Firestorm, I think ideally we'd want it baited on like this side here, just to give us a little bit more space. Not the end of the world, very, very minor. We bait the boulder basically just on anywhere on this half of the room is kind of good for us, because as I said, we killed the Fire Dragon, so we need to end up kiting this way to the right, clockwise around this circle. We're basically at the edge of our circle here because Thunderhead spawns like right behind us, right? So we can't go much further to the left. So we want to bait all this fire to the left-hand side and then rotate clockwise around the room. So there's the boulder there. That's a fine bait, not ideal, but could be worse. I think our really bad bait comes shortly after this. And there's those Searing Blows. That's the biggest thing here for tanks to handle. This is another one of those really, really big tank buster fights. This tank buster comes out every 30 seconds. It puts out the stacking dot on you, and that dot absolutely chunks. Really, really important to manage your cooldowns here accordingly, right? Alternating, like as a prot warrior, for example, right? Demo Shout, Spell Reflect, plus what? Right? You know, you got Last Stand, Shield Wall. You got healer externals available potentially. I'm running the defensive trinket as well, making sure you have like a full ignore pain for when those come out. That's kind of how a warrior would handle those. Obviously, blood decay, for example, pooling your runic power to do some big death strikes, AMSing every other one in this case because of the cooldown, rune weapon for parrying, because I believe that actually reduces the stacks if you parry some of the hits. So that kind of thing, just layering your cooldowns and making sure you have something up for each hit, which happens every 30 seconds. And again, healer external is very, very useful. We have Sack here, we have Devo even, Rally even kind of counts as a pretty significant health increase as well. So make use of those things, especially if you don't need them for any other part of the fight. Otherwise, we're just keeping kicks on the Firestorm here. You see how low I dropped there. I committed the trinket a little bit late, but I believe it was on cooldown, and that's where we have our really bad bait, actually. So that's like the worst bait, I think, of our whole fight here. So as you can see, like, we start rotating out when the circle drops from killing this Firestorm. I put the marker down because I think we should all be running this way out to have a good bait because of just our timing on this Molten Boulder and this Firestorm at dying. But I believe we run a little bit this way. Yeah, we have a couple people who row this way, and it baits the boulder a little bit further left than we want. It kind of cuts us off. So it forces us to eat a tick of this, which is quite scary on Tyrannical keys. So ideally, we bait this over here. But that's okay. We're going to end up having the Paladin here bait the Blaze Binding out here. And then as soon as that spawns, we're all just going to jump over the fire ASAP. And as you can see there, like, that's like one tick of the fire. Like almost 50% of the rogue's health. And then he got hit by the AoE, and that killed him. So that is kind of why this bait on Tyrannical is not ideal for sure. Ever having to touch the fire at all is a big pain, big pain. So keep that in mind. That was all because of a bad bait is why the rogue died and people almost died there. So keep that in mind. Baiting is extremely important here. And then we're going to have this ad now, and we're definitely more on top of the baiting, I think, at this point here. So we're going to have this ad die much earlier, so we have a ton more time, and we want to bait ideally towards the side a little bit there. So it goes all the way down off to one side. Again, ideal. It doesn't matter which side. So we had some people on this side a little bit, some people on that side a little bit, and it ended up going up into the pool over here. Perfectly fine. We still have tons of space behind us to work with. And again, this boss is not going to reset. That's why we cleared the fire dragon here. So again, we're baiting the next blaze binding in front here. We're all standing on the back here to bait the boulder through us and behind us, just like that. And now we're going to be killing this firestorm guy, and then we're going to be moving back away as soon as he dies. And again, keeping our eye on that molten boulder timer and making sure I have cooldowns available to deal with that dot as I did. There's that boulder coming out along the edge of the platform, and that's a good one to point because it blew up on the wall. Note if you ever are like right here, for example, and you bait it against this wall, you all need to instantly W key like through the boss because it'll blow up as soon as it touches any terrain, and it'll blow up in this whole big circle. So like if you're stacked here baiting the thing and you just kind of walk to like right here because, oh, I'm not in it, it'll hit the terrain, it'll blow up, and you will die. So keep that in mind if you're ever close to a wall when you're baiting. That's why we tend to try and not bait right against a wall we're at or a tree that we're at for whatever reason. So keep that in mind. And then otherwise, again, we're just rotating around the room here as long as we need to. That is why we had to kill the mini boss dragon, because as you're going to see here, like we're moving very, very far. And again, there it is, like baits behind us for the fire. Then we're cleaving the firestorm guy. That was like a demo shout, spell reflect, big ignore pain, to cover that that cooldown or that dot there. We're moving, we're baiting the boulder along the left side there. Still have plenty of room here to work with the boss. And again, just keep going just like that across the whole room, baiting this blaze binder here. I'm gonna pull the boss through a little bit for cleave, and they're all behind him to bait the ball behind him. Just like that. Very, very easy. Always try and bait this ball away from where you're going so that it's not blocking your path. And then, like, look how far we're kiting, right? We're going very, very far, and that is why you need to kill the dragon. Meanwhile, let's go past this boss, though. We've talked about this boss. We kill him. We are coming to some of these scarier pulls here, maybe near the end. So we got the Storm Warriors with the Thunderbolts here. So it's going to be at your tank. So get a kick if you can, get a Spell Reflect if you can. Otherwise, we're just focusing on AoEing this pack down. Tempest may be a situation on like 4 weeks where you want to commit AoE cooldowns here. Things like, you know, like the Rally, the Devo, depending. Maybe Darkness. Darkness is actually very, very good against that too. Just kind of depends on like your comp. And obviously how much damage you put up, but you definitely want to try and focus that channeler down over these Storm Warriors. Ranged, you don't want to be in here because, of course, these Storm Warriors Thunderclap will reduce your haste, so you want to stay away from those Storm Warriors ideally. And we're moving forward. Flame Channelers are some of the more dangerous mobs in this area. They need 2 kicks on them to stop their flame cast, which will deal big damage, the flash fire there, big damage and heal based on the damage done. So keep that in mind. Very, very spooky. Make sure you have kicks assigned to them. And I believe this is where things start to go wrong again. I believe we like butt pull, I think the mini boss pack at some point, which is very, very fun. Love that. But basically here, again, I recommend going relatively slow. I think you probably, if you have 4 melee kicks like we did, we definitely could have pulled this pack with the previous pack. And also, as you're going to see, like I said, we butt pulled. So the other thing we could have done for sure is either range kick this guy, or not range kick, have one person run in and kick this guy to bring the pack in, or like LOS it or something, just to pull it away from the mini boss pack. Because you can see, like, we're so close to the mini boss here, and someone's gonna like take 1 step backwards and they're just gonna get pulled, especially with Sanguine too, right? Like there it is, yeah, there, just like 1 step backwards and we accidentally pull them, and then this is where the chaos happens. So beware of this. These packs are very, very close together. If you have a range kick, pull that pack, get a range kick on them to pull them back, maybe line of sight them or range them to pull them back, something to pull them away from the mini boss pack, because definitely having the Storm guy with the High Channeler also together with the Flame Channeler, there's a lot going on in that pack. And like, look at how free the timer is, right? Like, we still have 10 minutes. We can take this really, really slow. We don't need to pull really, really fast here. And so if you wanted to combine these pulls, my guess is you'd combine this pull, if you had the kicks to do it, with the previous pull, so the double Flame Channeler pulls. You'd need 4 melee kicks for that, so keep that in mind. But of course, our group does have 5 melee kicks. Could have done that. Otherwise, though, you probably want to pull the High Channeler kind of probably on his own, or maybe that's like a lust commit on like a higher fort key with like another pack with a big pull there. But this is gonna end up in death. So spoiler alert, we die because of this. But let's fast forward where we kill the high channeler. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Okay, so for the high channeler himself, the big thing, which some people may not understand, is that his big shield that he uses, how it works is it takes the shields, this one, the Tempest Storm shield, it takes the shields of all the nearby Primal Thunderclouds, whether it's the ones he spawned, whether it's the one that were in the pack, or the ones like off to the side here, if you pull them at the same time, he will eat all of their shields, and his shield will be based on how many shields he. So if you have like purges, or you just DPS through these shields, his shield is going to be completely non-existent. See there? We didn't really get through those shields, so he has an okay sized shield, but not terribly large. So if you focus down those little ad shields or purge them or whatever, massive spells are very, very good there. One spell to get rid of all of them. He will not have a large shield, and therefore he will not be able to kill you with that Tempest Storm shield. Right, so keep that in mind there. That is how that ability works. Otherwise, Shock Blast, random target thing, has a dot, a magic dot, so kick it, spell reflect it, whatever. Make sure it doesn't go off again. Lightning Storm, darkness value, pretty high for that. And then we're going to get to the last boss here. And this is another boss that is definitely giving people some problems, particularly on that transition from P1 to P2 of this boss. And I'm going to talk a bit how to handle this boss and how to not have him absolutely murder you and give you the best shot at killing him. So, to start off here, as you can see, I put markers down. Basically, we're forming a little square right here between these two pillars. Like the edge of this semicircle here and like the entrance. And the goal here for this entire first phase, all 5 party members are always within this square, no matter what. No matter what happens, whether you get like a flame spit on you, whether you're getting pushed by winds, no matter what, you're in the square. Because where Kyraka jumps down is based on player location. So if you ever leave this square, Kyraka is going to jump down pretty far away, maybe, potentially, not necessarily, but potentially jump down really far away on someone who's like outside of the square, and that really hurts your cleave damage on Kyraka, because the goal here is to push the second phase, which happens when either of the bosses hits 50%, by doing Kyraka to 50%. So that is the goal here, because as soon as Kyraka dies in phase 2, the fight is over, you've won, because unless you're like healer is dead and you can't dispel your tank for whatever reason, you're going to kill the boss if only Urquhart is alive, because all the damage basically and the scary part of the fight is coming from Kyraka. So you want to push phase 2 by pushing Kyraka below 50%, not Urquhart. So you want to maximize your cleave, especially in our comp, which again is 5 melee. We really need Kyraka to land close to the melee so we can DPS her down. So we always want to stay inside the square. Now, the markers are basically just to let people know like where the winds are going to be. And as you can see, my bigwigs also says where the winds are going to be. With that arrow, it's pointing up here because it's assuming your orientation is from the entrance facing the edge of this platform up here, the top edge. And the winds will always switch directions counterclockwise as they go through the fight, with the first wind always pushing this way here towards this X marker from the entrance of the room, and again always counterclockwise. So that's how you kind of know in this first phase where to drop flame spits, so you don't ever need to drop them really far away from the group, because you know exactly where the winds are going to blow, so you know exactly where to put the flame spit. So you see here, flame spit's going to go out. The winds are going to go out here initially. They're pushing towards X, so we know this flame spit here, we want to put it around here. This is honestly even like a little far. Again, like I said, you don't want to leave X. We got lucky here, because if Kyraka had jumped down on the Demon Hunter over there, that would have been very unfortunate for our cleave. But luckily, he spawned on one of the other 4 people. So ideally, never leave the box. Just drop it on the edge here, because this is about to get blown away now. Off to the side here, as you can see, winds are going to blow this way next. So these are still going to get blown away. We're all safe right here. We're just cleaving the dragon. Whenever the dragon is here, we are hitting the dragon. We're DPSing the dragon down, obviously avoiding the frontal. And now we know winds are going that way. The next flame spit's coming out. We know the winds are going to go towards the entrance of the room here. So the rogue can just drop right there. Safe. They're all going to go towards the entrance. We're all safe right here. DPSing Kyraka, DPSing Kyraka. The winds are going towards the entrance. Now, the next flame spit's coming out. We know the next winds are going to move towards this way, towards the blue marker. So we can just drop them like right there, and everyone else is standing right here, and everything's fine. So we're just going to step out, drop it on the blue marker, come back. we cleave the dragon. And this is another important tip here. You always want to push Kairaka below 50% during a flame breath. This buys you several extra seconds, like maybe 10 extra seconds even, of Kairaka doing literally nothing to let you DPS below 50%. So as you see here, she's charging up the Roaring Flame Breath. We're pushing her. She's at 45 now. Faye's not pushing. She's still doing her Flame Breath. Faye's not pushing. We got her down to 40% almost, 41% before she did the transition into the phase. That's 10 extra percent on the dragon that we gained because we pushed her below 50% during a breath. So if she's about to like end her breath and she's at like 52, 53% stop damage on the dragon, if Urquhart's also very low, just literally sit there and wait, because this is going to make your second phase so much shorter if you do that. And also see we popped Lust there as well during that breath, because this is essentially the phase transition for us. So that's when we're popping our big cooldowns, Bloodlust, all that stuff. We're nuking Kairaka down, because like I said, as soon as Kairaka is down, the fight is good. You've won. You want to kill Kairaka as quickly as possible. And for this initial flame spit, basically we commit everything. Devo's going, Rally's going. Obviously, like the Demon Hunter popped his personals. You're going to see the Paladin pop his personals because that's who gets them, right? It's me, Paladin as well. Paladin also pops his personals. We drop those just along the edges of the platform as we can. See the fires going out. We still have the indicator from Bigwigs there telling you the direction the fire is going to go. So that's kind of how we dictate. It's much less important that you put it in the exact correct spot in the second phase. I know it's much more chaotic here. So as long as it's towards an edge of the platform, you're usually good here. So that's what we did. And then any other defensive you have left, if you get this fires, you see their cloaks, double cloak, very useful. And then it went on me, so I just drop it off the edge. And again, moving the boss a little bit away from those flame puddles, but it's going to be safe. There's a big area right there for them to move. We kill the dragon, and now we're safe. So this boss is now essentially dead. Like I said, we had some count issues because we didn't pull all those the whelps at the beginning of the dungeon, so we actually are starting to slowly kite this boss down to quickly move. And like I said, we do actually end up timing this, which is kind of crazy, but note that this guy doesn't reset until the stairs. So hopefully those tips help you for this boss and for this dungeon in general. If they did help you out, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it. Like I said, I have all advanced guides now out on my channel and linked in the description below for anyone interested. I also want to quickly mention here, shout out to Gorebreaker and all of my other Patreon supporters. I wouldn't be able to continue to make all this content without their support, and it's much appreciated. I'll link that down below if you also want to support, because you get some really cool perks for doing so as well, so make sure you do check it out. If you have any questions about this dungeon or any of the other ones, tanking in general, whatever it is, leave it down in the comments below, or come stop by my Twitch channel at Tactics and ask me there. Otherwise, thanks everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.